Chapter 21. The United Nations. The United Nations is an international organization founded in 1945. Birth of the United Nations. The Second World War, which began in 1939, lasted until 1945. This proved to be more destructive than the First World War, as more than 50 million people had lost their lives. The League of Nations, a world organization formed after the First World War to maintain peace and security, failed to prevent the Second World War. The USA, the USSR and the UK realized the immediate and urgent need for a world forum to establish an everlasting peace in the world. This realization led to the formation of the United Nations Organization (UNO) and the United Nations (UN). The UN conference began in San Francisco on 25th April 1945 to draft the Charter of the UN. The UN Charter contains the aims, objectives, rules and regulations for the working of the UN. It was signed on 26 June 1945 by the representatives of 50 countries. Poland signed the charter later. The UN came into existence on 24 October 1945. Hence, the UN Day is celebrated on 24 October every year. Peace-loving nations that accept the UN Charter are the members of the UN. At present, 193 countries are the members of the UN. The headquarters of the UN is situated in Manhattan, New York. India became a member of the UN in October 30, 1945. Organs of the UN. The General Assembly. The General Assembly is the main organ of the United Nations. It is called the Parliament of mankind. It is composed of representatives of all member countries, each of which has one vote. Each member state can send 5 members to the General Assembly. The General Assembly holds its session once a year. The session is generally held in the month of September. The special session of the Assembly can also be called for at the request of the Security Council. The main functions of the General Assembly are as follows. First, to elect the President and 21 Vice Presidents and the non-President members of the Security Council and the members of other organs of the UN. Second, to approve the UN budget. Third, with the recommendation of the Security Council, it appoints the Secretary General and judges of the International Court of Justice. The Security Council. The Security Council is the second important organ of the UN. It acts as the executive branch of the UN. The Security Council is composed of 15 members, 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. The permanent members are Russian Federation, France, the US, the UK and China. The non-permanent members are elected by the General Assembly for a term of 2 years. The main functions of the Security Council are: first, to maintain international peace and security. Second, to find peaceful ways to settle disputes of member states. Third, to recommend the admission of new members. Fourth, to participate in the election of the Secretary General. The Economic and Social Council. The Economic and Social Council coordinates the economic and social work of the UN and its specialized agencies. It has 54 members elected by the General Assembly for a 3-year term. Every 3 years, 1/3 of its members are set aside and new members are elected in their place. It meets throughout the year as and when needed At its session in July, the major economic, social and humanitarian issues are discussed. The social development, the status of women, crime prevention, sustainable development, the Trusteeship Council. The Trusteeship Council was established in 1945 to provide international supervision for 11 trust territories administered by 7 member states to ensure that adequate steps were taken to prepare the territories for self-government and independence. By 1944, all the trust territories had attained self-government or independence, either as separate states or by joining neighboring independence countries. So, Trusteeship Council suspended its operation on 1st November 1994. The International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice is also known as the World Court or the Legal Court of the UN. Its 15 judges are elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council for a period of 9 years. The International Court solves and disputes between the countries concerned. The World Court also gives advisory opinion to the United Nations and its specialized agencies. It is situated in the city of The Hague, Netherlands. The Secretariat. The Secretariat carries out the administrative work of the United Nations as directed by the General Assembly, the Secretary Council and the other organs. It is headed by the Secretary General, who provides overall administrative guidance. The Secretariat consists of development of offices with a total staff of about 7,500. The selection of staff is done on the basis of their high standard of efficiency and competence. UN agencies. The UN also carries on its work through 30 specialized agencies, which help in achieving its various goals. Some of the specialized agencies are FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, ILO, International Labour Organization, IMF, International Monetary Fund, UNICEF, United Nations Children's Fund, UNESCO, UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, WHO, World Health Organization, WTO, World Trade Organization. Achievements of the UN. The UN has succeeded in maintaining international peace and security and has averted global wars through peaceful negotiations. It has also helped in solving many of the social, cultural, economic and humanitarian problems among the member countries. First, 1946 made Russia withdraw its troops from Iran and Britain, France to withdraw its troops from Syria and Lebanon. Second, 1947 freed Indonesia from the Dutch. Third, 1956 invented in the Suez Canal crisis and finally internationalized the canal. Fourth, 1962 and 1973 diffused the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Middle East Crisis. Fifth, 1988 the Iran-Iraq War was ended. Sixth, 1989 sponsored negotiations for the withdrawal of Soviet troops from Afghanistan. Seventh, 1990 restored sovereignty to Kuwait and ended civil wars in Cambodia, El Salvador, Guatemala and Mozambique. Its specialized agency WHO, World Health Organization, has successfully eradicated smallpox and is working towards the elimination of polio, malaria and tuberculosis. The UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissions for Refugees, has taken a lot of effort to resettle refugees. The UN and its specialized agencies work for a safer world for the future generation. Emblem of the UN. The emblem is a map of the world as seen from the North Pole with 5 concentric circles. It is surrounded by a wreath of olive branches which symbolizes peace. The world map depicts the United Nations area of concern in achieving its main purpose, namely peace and security. The UN flag. The UN flag consists of the UN emblem in white on the medium light blue background. Language of the UN. Functions of the UN: peacekeeping, conflict prevention, refugees protection, counter-terrorism, disarmament and non-proliferation, promoting democracy, sustainable development, maintaining climate-friendly future, promoting international health, child care, reducing measles mortality, eradicating polio, prevention of malarial deaths, expanding food production, etc. Objectives of the UN: to solve the disputes among the member countries through peaceful means, to maintain international peace and security, to cooperate in solving international economic, social, culture or humanitarian problems, to promote social programs, better living standards and human rights, to ensure equal rights for all nations. The UN Security Council, the Economic and Social Council of the UN, the Trustship Council of the UN, the International Court of Justice of the UN, the Secretariat of the UN, the Secretary Generals of the UN, Antonio Guterres, Portugal, 1st January 2017 onwards, Ban Ki-moon, South Korea, 2007 to 2016, Kofi Annan, Ghana, 1997 to 2006, Boutros Ghali, Egypt, 1992 to 1996, Javier Perez de Cuellar, Peru, 1982 to 1991, Kurt Waldheim, Austria, 1972 to 1981, Yuthan, Myanmar, 1962 to 1971, Doug Hammarskjöld, Sweden, 1953 to 1961, Trygve Lie, Norway, 1946 to 1952. New words: League of Nations, an international organization established after World War I. Charter, a written grant by legislative power of a country. Non-proliferation, prevention of spread of something, especially the number of countries possessing nuclear weapons. General Assembly, a meeting of all members of an organization, representatives of the UN. Security Council, the permanent peacekeeping body of the United Nations. Secretariat, administrative department of a large organization. Trusteeship, the position of a trustee. Trustee, the person who is responsible for maintaining a trust. Let's recall. The United Nations is a world body. The United Nations are formed by the nations of the world. All the member nations together form a body called General Assembly. The most important organ of the United Nations is its Security Council. The day-to-day work of the United Nations is done through its Secretariat. The Secretariat of the United Nations is located at New York in the USA. The Secretariat is headed by the Secretary General. There are several special agencies of the United Nations like UNICEF, WHO, UNESCO, etc. UNICEF works for children. WHO helps promote good health, and UNESCO is the body for promoting education, science and culture. The achievements of United Nations are praiseworthy.